Yeah, bonsoir à tous on Francophone Day. So this is me, and if you're interested in my excellent crime fiction novels, there's a website you can check out. Just Google the name and so on. I'm not actually talking about crime fiction this particular evening. What I wanted to do is to share with you an interest in a real life. Is it better? Yeah. Oh, it's better. Yeah, so I'm not talking about my stuff, and particularly this evening. I want to look, or share an interest with you on a real life cold case, in fact, going back to the 1940s, which for one reason or another is just something that's kind of fascinated me in the last few months. So we forget about that, and to do this, we need to take ourselves back to 1945. And we need to shift our location from Hastings to rural Warwickshire, to a nice little rural idyllic village called Lower Quinton. Very, very pretty little village, as you see in a moment, and at the time we are interested in, very small population, 493 people living there in 1945. It's about 8 miles from Stratford, but it's itself very, very much in the sort of rural heartland of the county. Nestling, as you see, below a very attractive rolling English hill. This is the hill, Meehan Hill. And this is an aerial view of Meehan Hill, where if you look carefully, you can see the earthwork remains of an Iron Age fort, which has been there sort of for around 2,500 years, something like that. I kind of like to think about the ancient Britons up there all that time ago, whinging about the price of magic mushrooms, painting their face with woad and wanting to take back control and all that ancient Britons wanted to do. So that's where the village was. You see nestling down under the lovely Meehan Hill. This is the village in the 40s, very, very attractive. In all honesty, it hasn't really changed very much over the years. Certainly not in the centre. House prices evidently have gone up a little since the days that we are interested in. Which brings us to our unsolved case and our murder victim. This is Charles Walton, who was born and lived his entire life at Lower Quinton, gets married, is widowed, spends his entire life living there, working as a farm labourer. And even though by 1945 he's in his 70s and he's suffering from rheumatism and other age-old type diseases, he walks double quite often with a couple of walking sticks, he still on occasion likes to do farm work. And it appears really that he didn't do this out of any kind of financial necessity. It's just basically what he did all his life, and he still liked to do it when he could. So he'd do some casual labour when the weather was good and when he felt like doing so. Unfortunately for Mr. Walton, he decided to do this on the 14th of February 1945, Valentine's Day. And he sets off from the village in the morning, heads up to Meehan Hill in a field called Hilltop Field, where he does a bit of hedge cutting. And apart from one sighting, he's never seen alive again. Later on, forensic evidence estimates that he dies or is killed about sometime between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. in the afternoon of the 14th. His body is found in the evening, about 7 o'clock actually, once a search party gets anxious about him not returning from work, and they go, and eventually We find him in the field. This still here is actually taken at midnight on the 14th of February, done by flashlight. And fairly grisly scene, or not as grisly as some other shots from the actual crime scene. But you can hopefully see on there, with this technology, Charles Walton's working tools effectively. There's a pitchfork or a hay-fork, and there's what they call the trenching hook. It's a thing used to trim hedges, cut hedgerows, etc. And what's actually happened on this day is that Walton has been pinned to the ground, impaled through the neck with the pitchfork, the hay-fork, and the trenching hook is then used to slash and cut repeatedly at his torso. Basically bleeds to death from these horrific injuries. It's a seriously horrific crime. There's no doubt about that. And even in wartime, it's so kind of like horrific and startling that it almost immediately becomes a major news story. So it's killed on the 14th in the afternoon. This is page 1 of the Daily Mirror on Friday the 16th. It's the first national newspaper. And police hunt maniac, killer, man in the ditch, etc., etc. And it comes there a few of the basic grisly details of the case. And obviously, since the discovery of the body on the Wednesday evening, the local police and local detectives are working around the clock effectively, trying to find out what happens, looking at witnesses, looking for a suspect. None of that's happening, and as is quite typical in this period, it's a complex case, there's newspaper attention, and it's very basically grisly and bad. They call on the assistance of Scotland Yard to help with their expertise on the case. So on the Friday morning, or 11 a.m., if I got any detail, this chap with his entourage turns up in Lord Clinton, Robert Fadian. Later on he becomes known as Fadian of the Yard, and I may say something about that later on. And as he says here, by the afternoon he brought the 20th century to Lord Clinton like a cold shower bath. Fadian saw himself very much as a scientific modern policeman and detective, and he thinks the way to go with crime investigations is to throw as much modern science at it as you possibly can. And that's exactly what he does with the Lord Clinton case. He gets RAF planes up, taking aerial photos of the scene, a couple of miles around the actual crime scene. They're so detailed that you can pick out bloodstains on them, footprints, all that kind of thing. He has Royal Engineers using metal detectors, looking for clues. Takes about 4,000 statements to find the police at his disposal. Talks to everyone in the village and anyone who's remotely connected with the area at that time and place. Does his best on forensics. Clothing, fibres, blood, it's all gathered up, it's all sent off to the best forensic guy around, a man called Webster in Birmingham. And he does this for a solid month. He really goes for it. It's a puzzling case, there's no immediate suspect, no immediate clues, witnesses aren't saying much. And he shows everything that his expertise allows him to do in that case. And he basically gets nowhere with this. So a month later, middle of March, the inquest is called again, and basically the jury returns a murder verdict, but it returns it as a verdict from killing by person or persons unknown. So the case is unsolved basically. At that point, the investigation is wound down, and it's kind of the end of the initial press and media interest in the case. The other things worth saying, but about the inquest is that the only real suspect that Fady never had, a man called Alfred Potter, who's probably on his own admission the last man to see Walton alive, and he's also the owner of the farm that Walton was working on that last day. He's really the only witness at the inquest who's subjected to any kind of hostile questioning. Both Fady and Anne, the coroner, try their best to dislodge this guy's testimony at the inquest. He failed to do so, but he remains suspicious of him. He changes his story a lot about his whereabouts during this crucial 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. period. But with the limited forensics and the limited everything else available to investigation in 1940, if it is him, he gets away with it. There's not enough evidence to bring any kind of substantial case. So the case remains open but unsolved, and Mr. Potter is free to go. And there really everything ends and goes very quiet. Sort of radio silence on the case. That last slide, remind you, is from 1945. The next trace of the case in the newspapers, you don't get until this one in September 1950. And suddenly, hopefully you can notice the difference. Earlier on, the press and the police and everyone else are talking about a horrific killing, but nonetheless a straightforward killing. Somebody slashed the old guy to death, we don't know who did it. But suddenly, when the newspapers go back to the story, we appear to be talking about black magic murders. No longer talking about maniac killers, we're talking about black magic and witchcraft and matters of that sort. And the interesting question is why? Why do we suddenly go to that? And why are the press one instance present? Taking seriously the claims of this beauty plus lady called Dr. Margaret Murray. We talk about Margaret in a moment, who she was and why she was so influential at the time that her story is taken seriously. But basically, without advancing any evidence for this, Margaret Murray asserts that it wasn't a normal killing. It was a blood sacrifice. It was an old-style witchcraft, Wicker Man-style blood sacrifice where Walton is killed in the field, pinned down deliberately, so that his blood will flow into the ground and renew the soil and bring forth a new crop. All that kind of stuff. It does appear, she certainly alleged, that she actually visited the village in disguise as a sketch artist, and she wandered around trying to get information from various villagers. They don't talk to her, and she says, well, they're too scared to talk to me. They all believe in witchcraft, they're too frightened to talk. The reason why she's taken seriously at the time is that she has something of a national reputation, and she is, in all honesty, a fascinating woman who merits a Bavard in her own right, in fact. She's the first female lecturer in archaeology in the United Kingdom. She taught for most of her life at University College in London, and in the first part of the 20th century, she's involved in a lot of the important Egyptology investigations and excavations and so on, and has a very considerable reputation in that area. But later on, kind of from the 1920s onwards, she turns her attention away from Egypt and towards the topic of witchcraft in Europe. And it's fair to say that although what she writes about is very influential in the period, its kind of subsequent academic career has been less successful, and there's a load of criticism of what she said about witchcraft from subsequent research. She basically, very simply asserted that there was an old pagan religion, pan-European, worshipping a horned god and a mother goddess, which Christianity had eventually managed to dislodge by various foul means. That's the basic reason. It's very influential at the time. A book she wrote, The God of the Witches, in 1931. It gets a lot of attention, and particularly influenced this interesting chap, Bavard, who is still revered by modern Wiccans as one of the early founders of Wiccan religion, as a modern religion, as something that know. And he again is inspired by a lot of modern ideas. This is his book, Witchcraft today, from 1954, which is a very important book in getting the modern Wiccan movement going. You see, Margaret Murray helpfully provides Garden with an introduction and a foreword to this book. So, whatever her subsequent reputation is, she's a widely influential figure in this period, and that's why when she says it's a blood sacrifice, it's not a normal murder, the newspapers take it seriously, the public take it seriously. She says all of that in September 1950. There'd been radio silence on the case between 45 and 50, but now people are starting to take an interest again. And she kind of opens the floodgates, really, for this occult way of looking at the case. This is 1952, where the Society for Psychic Research get involved. And they have a great plan. They're going to put a seance on in the field at midnight on Valentine's Day. The medium is going to contact the spirit world, and the medium is going to give us the solution to the unsolved mystery. As far as I can work out, the seance never actually took place. They couldn't find a medium who felt comfortable with this idea, and I don't think it ever actually happened, but it does very much speak to this growing idea that we're dealing with the occult here, we're dealing with paranormal events, not, a straightforward killing. This here, as many stories tend to appear about Charles Walton's death actually on Valentine's Day. It's a brilliant piece of newspaper copy, a story you can run on Valentine's Day about a supernatural type paranormal event. So the seance story runs on Valentine's Day, and so does this one, which kind of completes this sort of jigsaw I'm trying to complete on at the moment. It's about a man called Alex Spooner. And Spooner was the local detective who worked with Fabian on the original case, the original investigation. And I think he becomes a little bit obsessed, maybe, with this unsolved murder. What he actually does, and he does it for 19 years, he does it to the end of his career, he takes it upon himself to visit Lord Clinton every Valentine's Day. And he just basically walks the territory of the crime. It's kind of like a bit like an early idea of modern, police reconstructions of serious cases. It's kind of that idea. Sums up on the 14th of the year, walks up through the village, up to the hill, all this kind of thing, in the hope that you jog somebody's memory, or somebody who's kept a guilty secret all these years will suddenly reveal it to him. Never happens, he never solves the case. But what's great from this the development of this occult story is that this is an annual event. So if you're a newspaper, you can run this story every year, and you can put all your occult stuff on top of it, all your legends and old myths on top of it. And it really does help get the career of the occult murder of Charles Walton off the ground. A couple of years later, for instance, the Mirror again, nice big spread, where they kind of bring together all this sort of occult stuff in one sort of handy story. Legends about black dogs. The fact that allegedly the 14th of February is a different date in the old calendar, and that old date relates to human sacrifice and old pagan rituals. All this kind of stuff is now sort of current in the media. By 54, 55, the middle of the 15th century. And it carries on like that. Each year, a story will be run somewhere, and each year some of the occult versions of the case will be trotted out. And it has to be said that even Fabian himself isn't immune from this. When he retires from the force, Fabian turns himself more or less into what we call a celebrity nowadays. One of the earliest BBC cult shows, for example, in the early 50s, is based on some of Fabian's real-life cases. He becomes a sought-after dinner speaker, gets himself on desert island discs, where this one was always puzzled me. He chooses a Bill Haley record as one of his records, Shake, Rattle and Roll, I think it is, which never quite seems to sit with the other stuff on the rubber, but he does. His luxuries are an umbrella, if you want to know that sort of thing. So, he's kind of a big media figure in the 50s. Detective of the Century presents an intimate record of the war against crime and so on. But he himself isn't immune from playing this occult thing. He says in the chapter in his memoirs, he talks about this case, he says, you don't believe this nonsense, neither do I, but he then gives you a nice couple of paragraphs sort of outlining some of the legends and the occult theories about the case. He kind of does it himself at that point. And the thing that he does that's really quite misleading is he talks about this lovely stone circle here. These are the Rollite stones. If you've never been there, really atmospheric stones, really worth visiting. But Fabian claims they're close by Meehan Hill. Well, they're not really. They're an 18 to 20 mile drive away from Moorpoint and Meehan Hill. So that's a journey you'd make now. But in the 1940s and in the centuries before then, when people mainly went on foot, it's a whole day's journey to get between these two places. So even though there may have been Sabbaths there and covens there and all the rest of it, none of that is happening next to Meehan Hill or Moorpoint. But again, it all helps to build the case that this is an occult matter, not a straightforward police matter. The story carries on in this way through the 50s, through the 60s, through the 70s. This rather cheesy looking book is from 1880. It's from 1968, Murder by Witchcraft by Donald McCormick. He's a very popular journalist, very successful journalist in the 60s. He writes for the Sunday Times and papers like that. And he gives you his take on the case in this book. Again, he recounts all the old occult stuff, but just for good measure, he flings some new stuff in of his own. For example, in there you find the assertion that when Mr. Walton is attacked with the trenching hook, a definite and distinct cross is drawn across his chest. There's no evidence for this whatsoever in the post-mortem section. It's a thing, it's an allegation he makes, and again, it sparks the imagination. Helps keep the case alive in this sort of popular culture of the day. Kind of on the other side of popular culture, this man is also involved in promoting the Charles Walton occult murder during the period. You're not aware of Colin Wilson. In 1956, Colin Wilson writes a book called The Outsider, which is instantly a bestseller, translated into 30 languages, never out of print, I wish. And in that book, really what the book does is it kind of introduces into British popular culture this sort of chic French left-bank existentialism. That's how it finds its way into the 50s and the early 60s British beatnik culture, etc. That all comes in through Paul Wilson's famous book. But Wilson is actually a prolific writer over a long period of time, as well as his interest in continental philosophy and stuff such as that. He also has interests in the occult and in crime. And on several occasions and in several books, Wilson takes on and retells this occult Charles Wilson story. And kind of, again, boosts the image of the story. It kind of brings an intellectual veneer to it. Sort of more sophisticated guys saying, look, this is what happened. And it's almost like it's a bit more cool to believe in it because Colin Wilson says it's so. And so it goes. The story stays alive in popular culture, and to a certain extent, it's now just waiting for somebody to come along and invent the internet. And they do, which is helpful. And basically, from sort of day one of the World Wide Web, people are uploading websites, they're getting involved in discussion boards, message boards, etc., talking about the Charles Walton case all over again, really. And to be honest, there are some very good, very fastidious, very objective looks at the case that you can find on the internet. But in general, for the most part, the tendency is once again to retell the blood sacrifice idea, the occult legends about black dogs and headless ladies. That's in Kino-teatr. And that's the kind of stuff you get on the internet version. And as I've been looking at this stuff, I'm still not quite sure why I got kind of interested in it, but it just doesn't intrigue me. So I started to realise that with this case, what I was really looking at was fake news in slow motion. You know, the fake news that we're concerned about these days is very, very, very fast and very worldwide. In the analog age, fake news still existed. Fake news is not new, but it took longer. Charles Walton's murdered in 1945. It's really 1955, I would say, before the story of the occult version of his murder really takes hold and really gets going, and it's then replicated and told over and over again ever since. So it's slow motion fake news, as opposed to the kind of stuff that we worry about at the moment. It can be set up and running inside an hour. Somebody tweets something, a person who likes what that tweet says, retweets it, retweets. And within a couple of hours, it can actually turn into a mainstream news story. So there's a sort of speed and a worldwide dimension that wasn't the case in the analog age. But the two things are the same. Or, you know, they do the same kinds of things. I mean, the things about modern fake news is that people tend to believe it even when they're told that it is no longer the case. So there's still loads of people around who think there were no moon landings. There's loads of people around who think Barack Obama isn't a proper American citizen, that he had a fake Hawaiian passport, that he's really from Kenya and should never have been president. They still believe that because they kind of like the idea of that story. They're not bothered that maybe you can disprove it by your dull, rational, empirical means and so on. And it's exactly the same with, I think, stories like the content of Charles Walton. And on this sort of murder side of this, where crime fiction, real life crime fits into fake news approaches, it's useful, I think, to include, often useful to include George Orwell and his fascinating essay from 1946, Decline of the English Murder, where he imagines you after your Sunday lunch, you've had a nice lunch, you're warm and comfortable, you pick up the paper, and what do you want to read? You want to read about a murder case. And as in our Charles Walton case, the more embellished, frankly, the better and the more enjoyable. And that's still the case for us now. We would probably pick up a paper, but we might switch on Netflix and have a look at something along these lines. It's also, I suspect, the same for the ancient Britons up on the campfires on Neon Hill in the evening. They were doing the same kind of thing. It's a human thing. You like that kind of story. Which brings me back, as you realise, from the internet all the way back to Neon Hill, which is where I started, and it's now where I finish. Thank you.
Thank you very much.